what they're coming back to is a world they don't really understand anymore. So our job as leaders is to put some certainty back into place to allow people very quickly to get a level of understanding of what they need to do, how they need to work, where they need to work, what is it that's now the priority, what isn't the priority, all of that stuff, because everything's up in the air for most of us.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hello, I'm Richard from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
And the question today is, what if my team don't come back from holiday raring to go?
The question is from Thinking Focus, a podcast about how we sometimes get in our own way and what we can do about it.
What if I don't come back from holiday raring to go?
Well, yeah, there is that. What if you don't want to come back? Also, yeah, what if the team don't come back at all? Maybe there's that question as well. So a number of questions here.
But what we're really talking about is that kind of feeling of post-summer blues.
Yeah.
You know, that you come back having had a nice summer break going, ugh. Sort of it's an extended version of the Sunday night, Monday morning feeling, really, isn't it?
It is exactly that, yeah. And I think, this year could be even worse than normal on that front, in that, people have perhaps had a couple of weeks off when they've not been having to think about homeschooling. They've not been having to think about trying to work at home. Perhaps they've also got anxieties about an uncertainty about what's happening to the business and, the marketplace. Here's a really great opportunity to have some time off. I've done that. I've really enjoyed that. Back to work.
And I think it's a thing known as a contrast effect, which is the difference between these two states, and going, it's not really takes a huge leap of imagination to kind of think about when you're having a really nice time in those 2 weeks off and you're spending some time with the kids and you're a little bit chilled out. And then you're thinking about work again, and work's been hard this year. Even if it's not normally hard, even if you love it normally, it's been really tough and really hard. And so steeling yourself up to kind of get back in the frame to go for that. I think on top of that, there's some other things that you have to think about that might go on in the summer. So you've got this contrast between great holiday and nice holiday. Although interestingly, I think if it was the Christmas holidays, for some people, it's the other way round. It's why some people can't wait to get back after the Christmas holidays, because all of that family time stuck inside.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's just way too much.
And you've eaten too much and you've drunk too much and the family have got on your nerves. Yeah.
And it's like, I need to get back to work. But in the summer, I think very much, you chill down, you relax a little bit, and then going back is a bit of a leap for a lot of us. Then there's seasonal affective disorder. So this idea that actually light and sunshine and time in the daylight and probably even time in nature is really good for us.
Really good for the sort of the brain and as well as the rest of the body.
So you go from, even just going, look, I had 2 weeks where I stayed at home, but we went for a walk every day and we went out with the kids and played in the garden, did all of that, to I got up at 8, I sat in the little room in front of my laptop. I sat there till 6, I stopped. I did a few things in the evening, I went to sleep, I got up, did it again. There's a big leap between those two states. And so again, that's not going to help with mood.
What if I'm managing people, leading people, and I've got people coming back after various different summer holidays, slightly different times as they do. How might I recognise that someone's feeling these post-summer blues or indeed got some anxiety around getting stuck back into the rest of the year? Anxiety
is a strange thing to recognise because it's not necessarily about the behaviour per se. It's about the change in behaviour. So one of the things you've got to...
You're saying inconsistent to how somebody would normally behave.
Yeah. So one of the things when I work with people, I want to do is calibrate. So, if I was working with you, if you turn up and you're grumpy, I'm not going to see that as an anxious behaviour because you're normally grumpy.
I find that offensive, but carry on.
I was just using it as an example. Obviously, you're never grumpy, but you get the point. So it's one of those things you can't just go look for these 5 things. What you're looking for is changes in behaviour. So if you look for people who are double checking things, if you look for people who are seeking reassurance all the time, but they didn't used to, maybe particularly people in middle management posts, if they start micromanaging stuff, if they're not willing to delegate as much, they're all signs that people are feeling anxious and nervous. And I don't know if we've talked about this before on the podcast, but Anxiety is one of those weird things in that it's a fear, but it's different to most of the fears that we're used to dealing with. If I'm walking down the street and a big dog on a big chain, pulls the chain tight, growls and snaps at me and barks really viciously, yes, I'm going to be scared. I'm going to have a fear reaction that's going to pump chemicals through my body that's going to help me run away.
Yeah.
But the reality is I know what I'm running away from.
You know what to do.
Yeah, I know that it's about being away from the dog.
So anxiety is more about you don't believe you've got the resources to cope with the situation.
Well, no, it's more about you don't know what the situation is you're running away from.
So you've no idea how to cope because you don't know what it is. So so you can't run away, can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an invisible dog that the further you run, the closer behind you it is.
And also the dog might not even be real.
No, probably not. It's a dog you made up. So I think for a lot of people, coming back to this kind of this situation this year particularly, I don't think it's very surprising that some people are going to walk back into work and have the post-summer blues because they've gone from a very stressful time to probably the first period of real relaxation because it's been hard to relax through this COVID period. Even if you've been on furlough, which must be a horrible situation for a lot of people because it's kind of you're in limbo.
Well, we've spoken to a number of people, haven't we, who have been furloughed, and it brings a whole other layer of uncertainty and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. There's one other anxiety as well, perhaps we've not mentioned here, that's come to mind while we're talking, or one other thing that might cause anxiety, I should say, which is not just getting back stuck into the rest of the year from a work perspective, but there's also maybe I've got to go back to working in an office environment. So I've got to start perhaps traveling into the office again, which I hadn't done. And there's a whole load of anxiety around what's that going to be like? Maybe it's taking the train and I've not been doing that. Is it safe? How do I do it? What's changed? There's those sorts of anxieties as well. What's the office going to be like? Are there one-way systems in place? But there's a whole other layer of it.
Yeah, you mentioned a number of scenarios that should be familiar to us. So like getting on a train. How do you do that now? What's the process?
Yeah.
How do you get a ticket? Do you get a ticket? Can you pay in cash? Do you still have to go through the barriers? Can you touch the barriers?
Am I going to be squashed in?
Yeah,
again,
all of that stuff. So we're living through days of unknown. So I think it's all of this layers on to go. Actually, people are going to come back, having had a break, having had a period of time where they've just gone.
So what if they don't come back raring to go? And again, we're generalising. Some people absolutely will. Yeah. And won't feel this way, but some won't. So what if some of the team don't come back? What's some of the things as a leader of a team that I could do?
Well, I think for me, it's why are they coming back? Why is that contrast so great? So we talked about that contrast effect. Why has, particularly this year, the difference between that couple of weeks off and that break and coming back to work, and theoretically a work they probably enjoyed because pre all this happening, they were in that job and they were there for a reason. If it was that bad, they probably wouldn't have been there. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not always true.
That's not always true. That's often why. Often the post-summer blues are exactly that.
Yeah, but assuming that they were kind of okay in the job before, what they're coming back to is a world they don't really understand anymore. So our job as leaders is to kind of put some certainty back into place to allow people very quickly to get a level of understanding of what it is they are doing, what they need to do, how they need to work, where they need to work, what is it that's now the priority, what isn't the priority, all of that stuff, because everything's up in the air for most of us. And the challenge is that if you think back to March, April, there was a really kind of weird situation there where we might not have liked it. It might have been really unpleasant and uncomfortable, but every single one of us knew exactly what we had to do for a period of time in that first 6 to 8 weeks of lockdown. It was just kind of, we just got to get stuff sorted. For some people, it was this business needs to survive or this team just needs to work out how we're going to carry on delivering when nobody's in the office. But it was kind of what I would call, we went from normal mode to crisis mode. We've gone from crisis mode to exhausted mode. actually part of the job of a leader now is to kind of go, well, what's the next phase look like? And
So
it's a more difficult phase, isn't it? Because it's a bit more undefined. It's a bit more uncertain. There could be a second spike or second wave, as they're calling it. We might all be back in the office in 6 weeks' time. We might not be back in the office for 6 months.
So we're saying try and control the controllables. We're saying try and create as much certainty as you can.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming then that what we need to do is to sort of bring the time frames in around things. So, we might talk about the plan for the next 3 years. That's really difficult to do right now. So,
but it's also difficult for me to perceive. So if you talk to me about the 3-year plan as an employee, I'm going, in my head, I might not say this out loud because I might not feel safe enough to do that, but I'm going in my head, that's all great, but that's all mumbo jumbo now because of COVID and because of...
We don't even know what the next 6 weeks looks like, that thing.
And you and I have had that in the work we've done. The number of times I've been on webinars in the last few months working with groups, and one of the questions has been, but our plans, our visions, our aspirations, they're no longer relevant. They all need to be rethought. And you kind of, the gentle answer to those people is, no, the chances are your plan, your vision, your long-term aspiration, the next three or four steps might now be up in the air and you might need to change what you're doing right now. But the bigger picture stuff probably hasn't changed at all.
It's probably still viable. It's just that you've got to change some of the steps to get there.
Exactly.
And that's really the key, isn't it? How do we articulate the timeframes around the next few steps and what the next few steps might look like? Yeah,
because that's the bit that most people can't see, and that's the role of the leader. The leader is now to kind of go, right, from here, don't worry about that. We're still heading in this direction. We're still going over here. This is our big purpose. This is our big vision. This is what we're trying to be. Number one in whatever, market leader of whatever, best supplier of, that's all still true. What's the next step? And I think that's probably a short time frame, which could even be just till the end of the year. So, between now and Christmas, we therefore need to.
I think for leaders as well, on top of that, is to accept that perhaps beyond the next 2 or 3 steps, you can't mark out the rest of the steps to the end goal, if that makes sense. And I'm a bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
But I think what we've been used to doing, what lots of businesses are used to doing, is saying, right, there's the end goal, whatever it might be number one in this marketplace or top provider of whatever. And here's all the steps that we're going to take to get there. It's a 2-year journey and let's go. And that way of thinking and planning was probably becoming outdated anyway in the lives we were leading anyway.
Yeah, you're describing a move from a waterfall way of thinking to an agile way of thinking.
Let's work on just the next step.
Yeah, this level of uncertainty forces that upon us because the reality is if you start trying to plan, even if you started trying to plan 6 months out right now, it wouldn't take you very long to get stuck because you'd go, well, what about and what if and what's going to happen here and what's going to happen there?
And I think it's probably fair to say that before COVID, that way of thinking, this old way of planning where you sort of plan every step was outdated anyway, but lots of people were doing it because it's the way it's always been done. And actually it caused loads and loads of rework and loads of anxiety and people sticking to plans that weren't relevant anymore and all those sorts of things. I think COVID has perhaps made us just much more aware that we've got to be more agile in the way that we plan because there's so many unknowns. There were lots of unknowns anyway in the old world, but there are even more now and they've become more obvious.
They're different, and we should do a podcast on this. And I always, I always think of that Donald Rumsfeld quote about the knowns and the unknowns, and the known knowns and the unknown knowns. But it is around that piece, which is, we had a lot of things that we thought we knew that we didn't really know, and that allowed us to underpin our planning and feel comfortable with it. And that's not true anymore. For the first time for a lot of leaders, we are very well aware we have no idea. We have no idea what's coming in 6 months' time or what's next or how is it going to go. So we are having to plan on the basis of, when we get to this point and we know where we stand, then we'll work out what we're going to do. And for a lot of people, that makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable, which is, again, why I think people are struggling sort of to come back into the workplace and go, well, where are we going? What are we doing? I can't now make sense of all this because I'd kind of got the 5 or 6 blocks in my head. They might not have been right, but I'd kind of imagined it because that's kind of roughly what we always do.
Yeah, what we've done last year and the year before.
Yeah. Now I get 2 blocks in and it doesn't work. So what's going on? What's the point? So our job as leaders is to pull people back and go, don't worry about any of that. The vision still stands, but actually in the next X months, the next X weeks, whatever the time frame it is you decide to do, and I think, the higher the uncertainty, the lower that time frame is going to be. Because you think, again, right at the start of the lockdown, there were businesses that we worked with. I mean, we were actually in our organisation.
Yeah, you were almost doing 24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah, we were talking every morning. What are we going to do today? Bang, 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 bang. Did that work?
Let's see what happens later. Let's see what this announcement is. How does that affect us?
But I think at the moment it feels like that time frame is longer. But it's not a 3-year time frame yet because it's just too many unknowns. So it's about bringing people back together and going, what does the rest of this year look like? What control do we really have? Where can we make a difference? Let's focus on those areas for the next few months. We can get to December and review that and then do it again, maybe for the first quarter of next year. And so we create a level of certainty and we create a level of control that everyone can then buy into, and work then feels less scary and feels less difficult because we have something tangible to work at.
Okay, so if you don't come back from holiday, then raring to go, I'll feel much more. Well, one, you might not come back, but if you do come back, I'll feel much more confident about how to deal with it.
And if you come back grumpy, I'll know there's nothing wrong.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.